let's call this nCoop as integer. By the way, there are two integer kind of types in VBA. One is called an integer. You use that for numbers that you know for sure will not be above 32,000 something in absolute value. They take up less space in memory. I think they take up only 4 bits, if I'm not mistaken. 4 bytes, not bits. Or if you want to allow much bigger numbers, millions and stuff, you use the data type called long. That's short for long integer. That's the irony for it. And that supports integers up to plus or minus 2 billion plus. If your work requires more than 2 billion integers, well, you probably should not be using VBA as a coding language, because you'll wait a lot. It's slow, relatively speaking. Oddly enough, the most efficient codes that I ran while working on my PhD in econ, which I never finished, back in Boston in late 80s, early 90s. The work that I've done over there that took 1 hour, it takes about a minute on Microsoft Excel. Things have improved so much. One of the reasons I never finished, we had mainframes those days. For complicated calculations, you use those. And we had a machine called VAX, and it was a 32-bit machine. And before I started doing the applications of my thesis, which was a theoretical model for a new kind of estimator, I was going to do simple stuff because what I needed to do was to optimize a function that was not even continuous, let alone differentiable. Numerically, those are very hard problems. And on a 32-bit machine, it was going to take ages. And there was a company called Digital those days. They came up with the first 64-bit chip. Okay? It was called an Alpha. And we got that. And my advisor said, it's not going to take that long in Alpha. Why don't you do it? Well, I ended up never finishing that thesis. The difference was big. Just to test, I inverted the standard normal distribution at 1,000 different points. It took 50 times less time on Alpha using exactly the same code than it took on Max. Now we have 64-bit stuff on these machines. DIM, let's call this iCache as double. I'm going to let iCache represent number of coupons. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you can put a comment right here. I've never done it that way. Yeah. When you put a comment, it automatically turns into a green font. So you know it's a comment. This is, come on, never mind. Dollar coupon amount. Again, none of that is necessary, but it's always a good programming practice to write those. A, if anybody's using your code, it gives them information. B, I mean, in this code, hopefully I'm not going to make a mistake, but sometimes you do make mistakes. You test the code to see if it works. And you find out it doesn't work, you need to go through the code to figure out what didn't work. Well, if you don't provide any information, then it's not that easy to follow and debug their code. Okay, let's do that first. First, let's calculate nCoop. And I'm gonna make sure that this is an integer, because if the user enters a time multiplied by the frequency, that doesn't amount to an integer. I'm gonna do the following. Let's multiply, what is that? I time with ifrec, and I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna round that. There is a function called rounds. Okay, I think I'm gonna round it to down. No, just rounds. To 0 digits after decimal. Then I'm going to ask the following. It's always a good idea to check the errors from the user. If the user gives me an I time, when multiplied by ifrec gives a non-integer number, well, whatever I calculate is going to be wrong. So you're going to calculate first and do this. If n cube minus I'm violating one of the cardinal rules of programming. Calculate something twice. Minus I times ifrec is not equal to 0. Then you can make if statements. That then is important. First, I'm going to tell Excel what to do if that is indeed true. I'm going to do the following. I'm going to say, again, let's put a comment here. This means user input resulted in a non-integer number of periods. Get out. It's always a good practice to tag, to indent code. So anything I write, belongs in that block. So I'm going to do the following. I'm going to say message box. This is a little box that shows up on user screen and gives up information. And I'm going to say your input your time input resulted in non-integer number of periods. Correct it and come back. That's simply going to appear on user screen. Now I need to decide what to do. If that happens, I know I'm going to get out of function because I don't have to worry about the rest. It's not worth to calculate. But I also need to return something with that function. Just to make sure, I'm going to do the following. Fixed on price. As you see, I have misspelled it, okay? And when I enter this line, it's not going to go back to my original spelling. That's how I know. So if you want to make sure, type it in caps. I just wrote something that's gobbledygook, and I'm gonna say that's equal to -99. If you get that as a result, you know that was a mistake. The spawn prices cannot be negative. So the error code -$99 automatically tells you that you made a mistake with the periods. In fact, given that, I don't even have to give the message, but I want to. If I'm going to use this only within spreadsheet, that's a good practice. But if you want this function to be called within VBA itself, don't use messages like that. Just give an error code that lets the caller of that function know that time was entered incorrectly, right? And then you say exit function. It does what the name says, it exits the function. And you finish with an if block with an end if. Technically, I could have checked for something else. I mean, I could check for errors and something else to limit the time I'm going to spend. I'm not going to do that. If there was something else I wanted to do, let's check the face value. I want to make sure that face value entered was positive, okay? Else and if are connected. iFace not iFace greater than 0, then. As you can see, this wasn't converted to anything, so let me write it fixed rate, fixed bond price. Voila, it's no longer cap because I spelled it correctly, barring capitalization issues. It automatically converts it into my preferred spelling. That way I know I spelled it correctly. Because you're going to make spelling mistakes, that's normal. If iFace is not equal to 0, I'm going to actually copy these. It's not positive. It's kind of a, say, if it's not positive. I could have said if it is less than or equal to 0, but I kind of prefer it this way.